Would you trust Biscuit the stray dog with a lost child's life, knowing his history? The late afternoon sun poured in molten gold through the fluttering leaves, casting long shadows across the aging asphalt of the town's central park. Biscuit, thin, scrappy, a tattered terrier mix with a patchy coat of white and brown, drew himself small beneath the sprawling oak, his coat catching the light but his eyes dull with cautious longing. Around him, laughter and chatter rose in waves, but the warmth of the scene eluded him, swallowed by a wary silence he carried like a shroud. A cluster of townsfolk gathered nearby, their words low, laden with sorrow and sharp with whispered judgment. They spoke of loss, the recent death of a boy, Danny's younger brother, and of fears harbored like secrets behind tight lips. As Biscuit's gaze flicked to a small sneaker discarded beside a rundown bench, voices hardened and eyes flickered to the dog, restless unease rippling through the crowd. "Get that mud away from here," one woman hissed. A man's voice barked, sharp and unyielding, "We don't need trouble now, especially not from strays." Biscuit's tail flicked, tattered yet expressive, a heartbeat trembling in the tense air. His ears flattened, muscles coiling as a collective shift in posture steeled the crowd, eyes narrowing like shutters against the stray. A child's broken shoe lay there, a mute symbol of innocence lost, and the dog's gaze locked onto it, hope and fear tangled in the depths of his soulful eyes. "Go on! Shoo!" a voice shouted. The crowd parted like a wave, feet pounding the earth as Biscuit retreated, each hesitant step a dance between desperation and instinct. The scent of warm grass, fading summer blooms, and the distant salt-thick breath of the ocean mingled with the sharp edge of rejection. His paws scraped thin on the hard ground, beaten back by swift, judgmental shouts. Danny watched from a distance, shadowed by grief as the tentative bond fractured beneath the weight of others' fear. His younger brother's absence was a wound etched deep, and Biscuit's rejected presence mirrored the silent pain they shared. The breeze caught a lone, ragged leaf, spinning it slowly across chain-link fences, a cage separating worlds, much like the barrier between bodies and souls unspoken. Biscuit's eyes lingered on the shrinking figure of Danny, the boy once solitary, now further isolated by loss and suspicion. A distant dog bark shattered the momentary lull, a sharp punctuation in the sunlit park. Biscuit paused, ears flicking, nostrils flaring, conflicted between the yearning for belonging and the instinct to flee. The sun dipped lower, casting the scene in a wash of melting gold and bruised purple, painting the park with the shadows of what was lost and the fragile hopes that clung quietly beneath. Biscuit's figure receded into the folds of the park's dense foliage, retreating to a hidden refuge far from human judgment, the unsung witness to a silent bond yet to be formed. The camera lingered on the discarded, tiny shoe half buried in earth and light, a poignant emblem of innocence waiting to be reclaimed, as the sun's last glow faded into the early evening hush. The dense canopy of elm and oak overhead filtered the sunlight into softened shards of gold and green, casting a fragile veil across the secluded corner of the park where Biscuit retreated. The scent of damp earth and crushed grass filled the air, mingling with the distant murmurs and laughter, sounds he longed to be part of but that now seemed impossibly far away. His paws pressed into the cool soil, the scattered leaves rustling with a muted whisper beneath his tattered coat. Nestled behind a cluster of unruly bushes, Biscuit curled into a small, protective ball, his eyes reflecting both the flickering sunlight and the shadows of rejection. The warmth that once carried hope in his heart was now edged with a persistent chill, a silent ache born from the repeated dismissals, the abrupt shouts, the backs turned in unison. His breath came slower here, measured against the rhythmic lap of a gentle breeze swaying the branches above, yet his senses remained sharp, ears twitching at every snap of a twig, nose weighted with the complex tapestry of scents, blooming jasmine from a nearby garden, the faint hint of barbecue smoke, and beneath all, the ever-present salt of the sea rolling in from the distant shore. Watching from the shadows, Biscuit observed the park's visitors, children racing with careless joy, parents calling across picnic blankets, elderly couples ambling with calm smiles. Each laugh, each cheer, seemed both a promise and a reminder of his solitude. His slender frame twitched when a group of boys passed near, their voices tinged with scorn. "There's that stray again," one muttered, eyes narrowing. Another spat at the ground, an unspoken vow to keep him at bay. Biscuit's ears flattened, tail drooping despite the lingering flick of hope that urged him toward connection. He felt the weight of countless unseen lines drawn sharply between himself and the humansa maze of wariness and mistrust forged from past abandonment. Yet the scrappy terrier refused to disappear entirely. His soulful eyes, pools of quiet longing, remained fixed on a small patch of sunlight where a scattering of bright toys lay by the playground, a spot where laughter had once invited, if only briefly. The vibrant colors seemed to pulse with life, a stark contrast to the muted tones wrapping around him like a shroud. A single child's dropped shoe caught his gaze, its worn surface a tiny monument to innocence lost. Biscuit's nose twitched. The fragile symbol beckoned with an unspoken promise. Slowly, cautiously, he inched forward, paws tentative on the soft grass, drawn by the faintest spark of hope rekindling within. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of the town's grief, the tender ache of a loss shared yet kept at arm's length. The chain-link fence beyond marked a bond and a barrier, a tangible boundary between worlds, a line etched with misunderstanding. Biscuit's eyes lifted toward the sun-dappled sky, golden rays piercing the canopy like scattered dreams breaking through the gloom. The struggle within flickered heartbeats of courage masked beneath layers of fear. As he paused, the distant laughter of a boy, the same boy the town whispered about, drifted across the park. The connection was faint, fragile, yet undeniable. A quiet tether pulled his gaze to the boy's solitary figure seated beneath a tree, the weight of sorrow visible even in sunlight. Biscuit's breath caught, the tiny shoe lying nearby, a fragile bridge between two lonely souls. The park held its breath, a moment suspended between despair and possibility, as the dog's tail lifted ever so slightly, the first hint of an emergent connection waiting to bloom beyond rejection. The camera lingered on this tender balance, the soft rustle of leaves underscoring a silent promise. Amid shadows, hope always stirs beneath fragile light. The park's usual vibrant hum had faded to a mournful whisper, the golden sunlight now softened by the late afternoon haze filtering through the aging oaks. Biscuit's paws padded softly over the worn dirt path, each step cautious yet deliberate as he moved beyond his usual hiding place beneath the dense shrubs near the playground. His scruffy fur caught the dwindling light, the patches of white and brown mottled and glowing faintly, but it was his eyes, undaunted, soulful, that carried the weight of longing. As he rounded the swing set, something small and fragile caught his attention. A tiny, worn shoe half buried beside the sandbox, its laces undone and the leather scuffed by restless small feet. The shoe, diminutive and delicate, felt like an echo of innocence lost, a symbol of childhood interrupted by sorrow yet survived by hope. Biscuit nudged it gently with his nose, the leather cool to his touch, and a quiet understanding seemed to pass between them. His gaze lifted, scanning the expanse of sunlit grass where children once played freely, now subdued by the shadows of grief and isolation. There, beneath a towering maple, sat Donnie, a boy small and still, his shoulders hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. The boy's vivid green eyes, a mirror to Biscuit's own, were cast downward, lost in the tangled web of unspoken pain. Slowly, tentatively, Biscuit approached, his steps a fragile bridge between two worlds marked by loss. Danny's gaze flickered upward, meeting the dog's, something in his eyes, a quiet plea, an unspoken recognition of shared solitude. The distance between them was palpable, filled with hesitation and fear, but also with the raw potential for a connection neither fully understood. The chain-link fence surrounding the park shimmered behind them, a lattice of steel symbolizing the barriers forged by misunderstanding and grief, separating not only land but hearts. Yet in this moment, the fence seemed less an obstacle and more a frame, focusing the light that poured over them, golden and forgiving. A soft rustle stirred the leaves overhead, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of fresh earth and blooming jasmine, sweeping away a whisper of hope. Biscuit lowered his scruffy snout, pressing it lightly against Danny's outstretched hand, a silent vow of companionship, courage, and the promise of something beyond pain. Danny's fingers trembled slightly as they curled around Biscuit's fur, a small, fragile smile breaking through the shadows that had clouded his face. The connection, a simple act, profound in its quiet honesty, told a story beyond words. It was a first breath after a long stillness, a tentative step toward healing. The late afternoon sun cast long, amber shadows, embracing them in a warm glow that softened grief's hard edges. In the distance, the lonely lighthouse stood watch, its silhouette etched against the burning sky, a silent guardian of this fragile new Banda beacon of hope amid the encroaching dusk. Biscuit rested his head gently against Danny's knee, their small, shared moment a quiet defiance against the world's doubts and fears. The tiny shoe lay nearby, a poignant reminder of innocence found and lost, a symbol anchoring them both in the possibility of renewal. The park held its breath, time folding softly around them in this delicate truce. The quiet promise woven between the scrappy dog and the grieving boy was unspoken yet unmistakably a seed planted in soil heavy with sorrow but fertile with hope. As sunlight slipped further beneath the horizon, bathing the park in a shimmering twilight, Biscuit's soulful eyes held a spark-fed but unwavering testament to resilience growing amid shadows, ready to ignite the journey ahead. The morning sun warped soft and golden through the spindly branches, scattering slivers of light across Biscuit's scruffy coat as he stealthily padded along the park's winding path. The air was thick with the fresh scent of dew-kissed grass and blooming wildflowers, mingling with the distant smell of freshly cut wood from nearby homes awakening to the day. The park was alive, yet to Biscuit, it felt like a world braced against him, wary, watchful, unsure. From the shadow of a gnarled oak, Biscuit's keen, dark eyes tracked Danny, who moved hesitantly ahead, his small frame hunched beneath the weight of relentless sorrow. The boy walked with uneven steps, hands stuffed deep in his pockets as though clutching onto shards of broken innocence. Biscuit's tail shifted slowly, his heart fluttering with uncertain hope. Every now and then, Biscuit edged closer, the scrape of his paws on gravel barely perceptible as he studied Danny's subtle glances back, tentative, curious, the flicker of connection uneasy but undeniable. Biscuit attempted a playful sway of his tail, a gentle whimper escaping his lips, an invitation to bridge the chasm of grief and fear. Danny paused, eyes flickering, then hesitantly extended a stiff hand in Biscuit's direction. "Hey, boy," Danny's voice cracked softly, a whisper as fragile as the breeze rustling through amber leaves. Biscuit inched forward, nuzzling the boy's outstretched fingers, his tattered tail wagging an uncertain beat. But golden moments were brittle. Across the park, frowns and murmured warnings shadowed their unlikely bond. A group of teenagers jeered from the playground's edge. "Don't go near that mutt," one spat, eyes narrowed, judgment sharp as stones. "He's trouble just like the kid." Danny flinched, his gaze darting away, pulled back by the weight of scorn. Biscuit's fur bristled, a low growl rumbling beneath his chest as he stepped protectively closer to the boy. But instead of gratitude, eyes hardening in misunderstanding met them. Laughter erupted. "Watch out!" The dogs guarding his little human, sneered a voice. The fragile bridge between them trembled. Biscuit's stance shifted from playfulness to alertness, protective instincts churning amidst mounting tension. Danny, torn between loneliness and the stinging gaze of his peers, swallowed the lump in his throat, folding back into himself as the sun dipped behind thickening clouds. The park, once a cradle of sunlight and laughter, now flickered with shadows of isolation and suspicion. Biscuit's hopeful eyes followed Danny as he retreated into the converging dusk, their shared connection fragile and fraught. The breeze swirled dust and fallen leaves around them, whispering of a bond struggling to take root in the face of fear and rejection. In the fading light, A tattered shoelace twirled slowly near Biscuit's paws, a whisper of innocence lost, yet not forgotten. And beneath the heavy sky, the subtle pulse of growing courage flickered quietly within the dog's soulful gaze, fragile as the approaching night but unyielding. The camera held on Biscuit's watchful figure, framed by the chain-link fence that encircled the park, a visible barrier mirrored by the invisible walls of misunderstanding. The scene lingered on this delicate tension, setting the stage for the fight for belonging and trust yet to come. The park, bathed in the growing heat of midday, shimmered under the heavy sun, the air thick with the scent of freshly mown grass and the hum of distant lawnmowers. Biscuit trotted cautiously at Danny's side, his tattered tail wagging in tentative rhythm to the boy's slow, hesitant steps. The dim interplay of light and shadow beneath the towering trees seemed to cast a fragile glow around Tama, temporary haven from the skeptical world beyond. Yet, beneath the surface, tension coiled like a restless serpent. A group of children, eyes narrowed and laughter edged with suspicion, congregated near the swings, whispering harsh judgments as Danny and Biscuit approached. Voices dripped with disdain. "Why does he hang out with that mutt?" One muttered, eyes darting sharply. "It's like, who even wants a stray?" Another sneered, kicking at the dirt. Danny's shoulders stiffened. His gaze flickered to Biscuit, whose demeanor remained protective yet uncertain, sensing the storm gathering. Biscuit's fur bristled slightly as he moved closer to Danny, a low growl rumbling softly, a thin line between loyalty and warning. The accusations escalated quickly, harsh words tossed like stones into the fragile light they shared. Biscuit lunged forward impulsively at a boy who stepped too near Danny, teeth flashing briefly in a desperate attempt to shield. The park hushed, a sudden, sharp intake of breath reverberating through the onlookers. "Get the dog!" a voice cried. "He's dangerous." Danny's face crumpled, torn between embarrassment and fear, as his peers recoiled, a rift widening between him and the fragile new world he had begun to explore. Biscuit retreated, eyes searching desperately for acceptance that seemed to vanish with every passing moment. Alone again beneath the sprawling sky, the sharp clang of the distant fire bell echoed the town's anxious heartbeat, loud and urgent. The heavy scent of cut grass mingled now with the faint aroma of smoke, stirring unease in the thick, swirling air. Danny's footsteps faltered as Biscuit sank to the soft earth, the chain-link fence casting long, confining shadows across the playground, a visible barrier reflective of the invisible walls erected by fear and misunderstanding. Biscuit's soulful eyes lifted to meet Danny's, an unspoken plea, a shared solitude etched in every fiber. Danny reached out slowly, touching the scruffy fur, a fragile bond reaffirmed amidst the growing storm. The sun began to dip, casting an amber hue that softened the harsh outlines of the empty park. The tiny shoe Biscuit had found lay half hidden in the grass, a poignant emblem of innocence suspended between loss and hope. The day's light wavered, shadows stretching longer as dusk approached, a reminder of the darkness that still lingered, swallowing moments of fragile courage. And just as Danny's hesitant smile began to return, a distant siren waylaid, a shrill spike piercing the settling calm. Eyes turned, breaths held tight, the peaceful facade shattered by an urgent call. Biscuit's ears twitched, instinct sharpened. Danny's hand tightened on the dog's fur. The bond, tested and strained, held fast amidst the encroaching uncertainty. The camera held on their intertwined forms, framed by the chain-link fence and the fading sunlight, poised on the cusp of upheaval, a silent promise that the journey toward trust and healing was only beginning. The park, once a refuge bursting with sunlight and laughter, had succumbed to a shadow darker than the lengthening evening. Biscuit's paws moved silently across the cracked pavement, the weight of suspicion pressing upon him heavier than the fading daylight. His soulful eyes, once eager and hopeful, now flickered with a mix of confusion and quiet dread, mirrored to the turmoil swelling in his small companion's heart. Danny's absence was a void that stretched into every corner of the town. Parents whispered behind drawn curtains. Neighbors exchanged wary glances. The rumor had woven itself swiftly. Biscuit, the scrappy stray dog seen near the park, had been spotted clutching another child's lost shoe. Whispered accusations of foul play spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and misunderstanding. Biscuit stopped by the chain-link fence, his scruffy tail lowering as he glanced toward the empty playground where Danny had last been seen. The sun, now smoldering behind gray clouds, cast an oppressive pallor over the world, its warmth consumed by a creeping chill. Nearby, that same tiny shoe lay half-buried in the dirt, a haunting emblem of lost innocence and fractured trust. The townsfolk's voices behind him grew louder, sharp and accusing, their silhouettes merging into a threatening chorus. "We told you that dog was trouble," someone spat, eyes blazing with suspicion. Biscuit's hackles rose defensively, but deep within, a raw fracture of fear and despair took root. The few friends the scrappy dog had felt slipping away beneath the weight of blame. Meanwhile, Danny huddled in a quiet corner of an abandoned lot, shrouded in silence and aching solitude. His young shoulders trembled beneath the burden of grief and isolation, his eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. Biscuit's yearning to protect his only friend wavered like a dying ember, the misunderstanding crushing the fragile trust they had begun to build. The once vibrant park now echoed with the hollow sound of absence, laughter replaced by whispers, play replaced by suspicion. In that heavy dusk, the chain-link fence stood as a stark metaphor, its cold metal strands separating not just spaces, but hearts and hopes. Biscuit's eyes lingered on its harsh lines, yearning to bridge the divide but bound by forces beyond his control. A gust stirred the scattered leaves, a melancholic dance that swept through the deserted playground. In that poignant moment, Biscuit rested his muzzle against the cold earth, a silent surrender entwined with the flicker of dogged resilience. As night fell, the scene lingered on the faint outline of Biscuit's figure, shrouded by gathering shadows, the distant lighthouse beam sweeping steadily over the park, an emblem of enduring hope amidst the engulfing darkness. The quiet was broken only by the soft rustle of the lost shoe, a symbol of the fractured innocence around which the town's fears now circled, poignant, fragile, and waiting to be reclaimed. The camera held, slow and deliberate, capturing the fragile cusp between despair and redemption, as the story's course wavered between loss and the stubborn glow of an uncertain future. The evening sky was a bruised canvas of grays and deepening blues, swallowing the remnants of daylight in a suffocating cloak of shadow. Biscuit's body huddled small against cold, damp earth beneath a skeletal tree, its bare branches clawing the storm-heavy sky, an image of isolation as stark as the turmoil gripping his heart. The park, once a stage for fleeting hope and fragile connections, was now a ghostly silence, the laughter that had once filled the air replaced by the hollow echo of absence. The soft patter of rain began, tentatively at first, tapping lightly on the patchwork of Biscuit's worn fur, the drops cooling and relentless. The earth beneath him soaked the sound, muffling it into a somber whisper, as if nature itself mourned the falling tides of trust and belonging. In the distance, the chain-link fence stood as a grim divider, the boundary separating the dog from the warmth of human touch, the safety of friendship. With every distant murmur of footsteps and hurried whispers of townsfolk, Biscuit flinched, his eyes flickering against the wet earth with a sorrow too deep for words. His memories of the boy Danny replayed quietly in the shadows of his mind, the hesitant touch, the brief moments of mutual understanding, now fractured by the heavy weight of accusation. The boy's absence was a void wider and colder than Biscuit's usual hideaway, a constant ache gnawing at the scrappy dog's fragile hope. The oppressive dusk swallowed the park's colors, draining even the tiny, discarded shoe lying forlornly near Biscuit. Its bright red hue dulled by the rain, it was now a battered relic, a symbol of innocence lost and a bond severed. Biscuit's gaze lingered on it, the only remnant of connection amid the growing chasm of suspicion. No longer chased, now cornered by silence and scorn, Biscuit's breath came in shallow, ragged tides. His soulful eyes, windows to a world of pain and longing, scanned the empty paths, seeking a trace of the boy he had vowed to protect, a whisper of understanding from a town that refused to listen. A sharp gust rattled the rusted fence, an echo of fractured trust, and the distant silhouette of the lighthouse blinked faintly in the gathering dark, its steady beam now a cold reminder of solitude and separation. The once vibrant park faded into memory, its silence stretching thick and suffocating, enveloping Biscuit in a shroud woven from rejection and fears he could not chase away. Nestled beneath the skeletal tree, his body curled and tensed, lost between a past echoing with warmth and a present drowning in shadow. A solitary tear slipped slowly across his muddy snout, glistening against the storm-soaked earth, an emblem of a soul unraveling, awaiting a dawn that seemed impossibly distant. And as night deepened to full embrace, the world outside fell mute, silent witnesses to a story of despair etched in fur and silence, a heart breaking beneath the weight of unspoken truths. The shelter was a bleak sanctuary of fluorescent light and cold, sterile floors that echoed with the subdued movements of animals and wary humans alike. Biscuit sat in a far corner of his cramped cage, the thin metal bars casting long, oppressive shadows that stretched like fingers across the concrete, pinning him to a silent prison of isolation. The scent of disinfectant clung to the air, merging with the faint, melancholy aroma of damp fur. Outside, the distant rain traced slow rivulets down the fogged glass, blurring the outside world into muted shades of gray. Biscuit's eyes, those deep, expressive pools of loneliness and hope, were fixed on the shifting shadows, reflecting a turmoil far greater than the confines of his small cell. Every sound echoed sharply in the vast quiet, a reminder of separation and loss. Behind him, the walls of the shelter vibrated with distant barks and mournful howls, a chorus of forgotten souls longing for compassion. Yet Biscuit remained still, his frame curled inward, chanting the silent mantra of abandonment. Across town, Danny stood alone beneath the sprawling branches of the park's tallest oak. The warm glow of the setting sun had faded to a cold twilight, the park's familiar hues now stripped to monochromatic blues and grays. His small hands trembled as he clutched the empty leash, the absence of Biscuit's once steady presence etched deeply into his posture. The playground was deserted, its swings creaking softly in the evening breeze, a melancholy lullaby that matched the hollow ache in Danny's chest. His wide eyes scanned the empty paths and silent benches, each shadow a ghostly echo of companionship lost. The chain-link fence that circled the park seemed thicker, an insurmountable barrier of suspicion and fear. The tiny shoe, once a symbol of innocent playfulness, lay forgotten beneath the oak's gnarled roots, half buried in damp earth and drifting leaves. Its worn surface whispered of stakes misplaced and bonds severed. Danny knelt slowly, brushing dirt from the shoe with trembling fingers, a gesture heavy with guilt and longing. A faint whisper of wind rustled the branches overhead, a solitary voice lost in the twilight, whispering tales of friendship fractured by misunderstanding. Danny's lips parted, the words barely more than a breath. "I'm sorry, Biscuit." Back inside the shelter, Biscuit's ears twitched at the faint sound of approaching footsteps, a hunger for connection stirring beneath layers of despair. His eyes flickered with a fragile spark, the smallest ember of hope against the engulfing night. The room's fluorescent glow flickered, casting fleeting halos over the scruffy terrier's beaten fur. He raised his head slightly, nostrils flaring as if seeking a distant scent, a whisper of belonging. Outside, darkness fell fully, swallowing the town beneath a canopy of cold stars. Silence deepened, solid and all-encompassing, pressing down like thick fog over empty streets and empty hearts. The scene held on Biscuit's still figure as he lay back down, the weight of absence settling like dust over his weary frame, a fragile moment suspended between despair and the faintest hint of persistence. And in that profound stillness, the world waited, breath held, heart heavy, for the quiet stirrings of courage yet to rise from the depths of shadow. The shelter's silent corridors stretched endlessly, sterile and cold beneath flickering fluorescent lights that hummed like distant storms. Biscuit lay curled in the corner of his small kennel, the weight of captivity pressing heavily into his bones. His scruffy coat was matted, his tattered tail rested motionless, but in the depths of his expressive eyes, a faint glimmer still flickered, a fragile ember amidst the shadow. Outside, the world moved on, vibrant and unaware. Beyond the bars, the fading light of day merged with the creeping darkness of night, casting a muted glow upon the cracked concrete floor. The distant sounds of children's laughter drifted faintly, echoes of a happiness that felt both unreachable and necessary. The scent of earth, leaves, and possibility were memories pressed against the cold starkness of the kennel. Inside, Biscuit's gaze lingered on a worn, lonely object half hidden beneath the bedding, a small child's shoe, dirt-streaked and faded from its days of playful leaps and carefree running. It lay cradled quietly in the corner, a silent artifact of innocence lost and yet to be regained. His nose twitched as he inched closer, gently pressing against the shoe with tenderness reverent and raw. Meanwhile, nearby in the town's shadowed streets, Danny's footsteps faltered beneath the weight of absence. The park, once a haven of sun-drenched laughter and the tentative promise of companionship, now seemed a muted realm of memories. The chain-link fence loomed like an invisible barrier shrouding his solitude, the scent of lost hope trailing like the fading light of the day. His eyes closed briefly, recalling Biscuit's touch, the warmth once shared between unlikely souls battling despair together. The sting of guilt tightened in his chest, a silent ache for the only friend who had dared to reach into his fractured world. A soft rustle startled the silence, a distant, familiar whisper from the shelter, carried faintly on the breeze. The wind intertwined now with the promise of rain, and the scent of soil and turning leaves hinted at renewal beyond sorrow. Inside the kennel, Biscuit lifted his head slowly, nostrils flaring to the mingled smells of damp earth and human presence. A tentative sound of footfall, a whispered word pressed against the quiet. Danny's silhouette emerged in the dim hallway of the shelter, cautious but determined. His fingers brushed against the bars as he whispered, "Don't give up, Biscuit. We'll find each other again." The dog's eyes met the boy's, shimmering with newfound hope, a flicker that survived fear and condemnation. The silence that followed was thick but not empty, a fragile sanctuary held in the heartbeat between breaths. And as the twilight deepened outside, blanketing the world in a velvet cloak pierced by distant stars, the camera lingered on Biscuit's resting form, the small shoe still nearby, and Danny's quiet figure retreating into the night. The story held in suspended breath, a moment unspoken, a fragile spark ignited beneath the weight of darkness, pointing toward a dawn yet to come. The early dawn spilled its amber glow across the quiet park, softening the shadows that had lingered through the night. Biscuit moved with cautious purpose, his scruffy tail twitching as he navigated beneath the rustling trees and around familiar benches. The air was thick with a gentle warmth that hinted at hope, yet underneath, remnants of doubt clung stubbornly, an echo of the rejection and suspicion that had cast him aside. Biscuit's eyes, deep pools of soulful longing, caught the subtle shimmer of the tiny shoe half buried in the grass. It was a fragile relic, tiny, worn, a remnant of innocence lost amidst the shadows of misunderstanding and fear. The dog's nose brushed softly against it, lingering like a silent prayer. The shoe's faded reds and scuffed leather seemed to pulse slowly, a quiet heartbeat that called him to believe in something more. Near the park's entrance, a faint glow of sunlight seeped through a break in the clouds, a delicate thread weaving between the despair of night and the promise of renewal. Biscuit paused, his ears twitching to the distant sounds of the town awakening, distant chattering, the faint hum of life stirring in the streets beyond, a stark contrast to the hushed stillness of the park. His gaze drifted up toward the sky, where tinges of pink and gold foretold a dawn of possibility, a silent reminder that darkness was temporary. His battered coat caught the light in patches, glistening with dew and hope. Despite the scars of abandonment and rejection, he was beginning to sense a truth: change was not beyond reach. A breeze swept softly through the branches, stirring fallen leaves and whispering secrets into the morning air, secrets of resilience, of second chances yet to unfold. Biscuit's body tensed as a distant voice reached him, a tentative, familiar call that stirred childhood memories long buried beneath years of loneliness. It was Danny's voice, faint but unmistakable, calling across the dawn. With cautious steps, Biscuit moved toward the sound, each paw finding purchase in the soft earth. The sunlight now touched his scruffy fur, highlighting patches of white and brown, a mosaic of scars and hope. His eyes, shining with renewed resolve, fixed on the path ahead, no longer just avoiding rejection, but seeking the possibility of belonging. The camera lingered on the tiny shoe, now visible in the frame, as if symbolizing innocence, lost but not forgotten. It lay amidst wildflowers and dew, waiting, perhaps, for the moment when hope would finally catch up with despair. As Biscuit finally reached the small clearing where Danny's voice echoed, a fragile silence settled. Wind rippled the grass, and the whole scene shimmered with the faint light of dawn and awakening, a whisper of change about to unfold. The scene paused on this fragile tableau. A scruffy, battered dog and a boy on the brink of rediscovering trust, an uncertain, tentative step toward a future that still shimmered like dawn's fleeting glow. The dawn's pale light seeped into the park, casting long shadows that danced softly across the dewy grass. Biscuit's battered frame moved with cautious purpose, his scruffy tail flicking in tentative rhythm. The air was thick with quiet hope, a fragile breath amid the lingering darkness of distrust and misunderstanding. His eyes, soulful and expressive, flicked toward the faint outline of the town's rising sun, the first promise of hope's return. In the distance, a faint cry pierced the morning hush, a child's distress, sharp and urgent. Biscuit's ears perked, his heart pounding with renewed resolve. With deliberate steps, he navigated the familiar paths, guided by an unspoken purpose, the quiet whisper of his instinct, whispering that even in shadows, a spark of goodness still flickered. As Biscuit neared the playground, he saw Hera's small girl, limping and trembling, caught in a dangerous situation where a fallen branch threatened harm. Without hesitation, Biscuit acted. He darted forward, placing himself between the girl and the obstacle, teeth bared not in anger but in a fierce attempt to protect. The townsfolk, hidden behind locked doors and distant windows, watched in stunned silence as Biscuit's act of bravery unfolded. For once, the scruffy dog was more than a stray, he was a guardian, a symbol of resilience that refused to be tarnished by judgments. The girl's eyes softened as Biscuit gently nudged her hand, his once wary gaze now filled with a quiet, unwavering determination. The sunlight broke through the clouds, bathing the scene in a warm, golden hue, a visual testament to the dawn of understanding. Behind him, a chain-link fence glinted with morning dew, a stark reminder of boundaries built by fear and prejudice. Yet Biscuit's act shattered those barriers, opening a path toward hope and possibility. The town's skeptics, peering from behind curtains and closed doors, felt the shift, the first cracks in their hardened perceptions. The moment lingered, suspended in time, the scruffy dog standing resolutely at the frontier between broken trust and renewed faith. The tiny shoe, a silent relic of innocence, lay nearby, winking in the sunlight, a symbol that amid chaos, hope can still take root. The scene held its breath, every leaf, every blade of grass echoing the quiet triumph of courage over despair, of kindness over suspicion. Biscuit's soulful eyes lifted toward the sky, a silent prayer of gratitude for the morning's unexpected gift, a promise that even the darkest night can give way to dawn. The first light of dawn spilled across the park, bathing the scruffy trees and the worn playground equipment in a luminous glow. Biscuit sat atop the small hill, his ragged tail curling gently behind him as he watched the waking town breathe. The warmth of the sunrise washed over him like a promise, an unspoken vow that even the darkest shadows could give way to light. His mottled fur gleamed in the golden hue, patches of white and brown catching the rays, as if stitched together by hope itself. From behind, a faint sound, soft footsteps approached, carving a gentle rhythm into the stillness. Biscuit's ears perked, soulful eyes narrowing with cautious anticipation. Danny's figure emerged from the shadows, slow but purposeful, carrying the familiar small shoe, the one that had symbolized innocence and the fragile thread tying them together. Danny's breath caught, eyes shimmering with dawn's first light and a renewed sense of resolve. He paused at the foot of the hill, staring at Biscuit, stronger now, steadier, as if he sensed the change, the awakening. Slowly, hesitantly, Danny lifted his foot and placed the tiny shoe beside Biscuit's paw, a silent gesture of forgiveness, of trust reborn. The camera lingered on the intertwined figures, the boy and the dog, as the dawn's golden rays poured over them, illuminating the raw beauty of renewal. The ties of suspicion and misunderstanding, the chain-link fences of prejudice, dissolved in the rising sun, replaced by a luminous exchange of hope and loyalty. The sky flared brighter, colors deepening into a symphony of amber, pink, and violet, symbolizing a dawn of redemption. Biscuit's soulful eyes looked up, glittering with a spark of newfound purpose. Without a bark or a word, he gently nudged the shoe, and then Danny's hand, that small act, filled with unspoken promise, summoned the light swirling around them. The scars of rejection faded into the background, replaced by something more resilient, trust, if only for a moment, shining in both their gazes. In that perfect, fleeting pause, the town seemed to hold its breath, the animals, the trees, the sky, all bearing witness to a quiet revolution of hearts. Biscuit and Danny stood as a testament to what could bloom amid brokenness, a union forged in pain yet blooming in hope. Their silhouettes framed against the awakening sky, a visual of unity and strength, poised at the edge of the final chapter. And as the camera slowly pulled back, capturing this moment of profound transformation, the scene settled into a silence alive with possibility, a silent promise that, even in the depths of despair, renewal quietly waits. Under the vast, star-studded sky, the tiny patch of earth in the park seemed to breathe in a quiet, sacred pause. The gentle whisper of the wind intertwined with the soft hush of the evening, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and distant ocean salt, reminders of nature's resilience and the fleeting nature of sorrow. Danny sat quietly on the worn wooden bench, his small frame relaxed yet contemplative, as the faint glow of stars began to emerge, flickering in silent witnesses to his inner transformation. Beside him, Biscuit rested, his scruffy fur catching the eve's gentle light, patches of white and brown blending into a tapestry of scars and hope. The dog's soulful eyes met Danny's briefly, a silent exchange that needed no words, a culmination of trials and healing, and unspoken recognition that pain, once raw and unyielding, was now a bridge to peace. In the distance, the old lighthouse stood proudly against the horizon, its beam cutting through the dusk, a steadfast guardian of stories and steadfast hope. It symbolized the journey through darkness into dawn, through misunderstanding into trust, and now, finally, into acceptance. Biscuit's head leaned softly against Danny's knee, a gentle gesture of connection, resilience, and unconditional loyalty. Danny reached out, placing his small hand gently on Biscuit's scruffy side, a gesture of gratitude and newfound strength. His eyes lingered on the shoe resting beside Biscuit, mirroring the bond of innocence, of childhood, temporarily lost but always waiting to be reclaimed. The shoe was a quiet testament to the journey, once a symbol of despair, now a beacon of hope. The scene lingered on the stillness, an intimate tableau of healing. The stars intensified, twinkling in silent acknowledgement, casting a shimmer over the landscape, as if nature itself was celebrating the quiet triumph of compassion over chaos. A soft breeze wove through the trees, balancing the serenity with gentle whispers, reminders that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. The world held its breath, slow and deliberate, as night fully settled, embracing the peaceful moment, a visual of harmony restored, hearts mended, and stories reborn. Under a vast, velvet sky illuminated by countless twinkling stars, Danny gently placed the worn shoe back on his tiny foot. He looked over at Biscuit, settled calmly beside him, their silhouettes softly outlined against the shimmering waters of the lake. The air was filled with a tranquil silence, broken only by the gentle lapping of the waves and the distant call of a night bird. It was a moment suspended in time, a silent affirmation of reconciliation and hope. Danny's face, streaked with dirt and tears, softened into a gentle smile as he reached out, resting his hand on Biscuit's scruffy head. The dog's soulful eyes lifted, meeting Danny's gaze with a shimmering expression of understanding, no words needed. The tiny shoe, now cradled in Danny's hand, symbolized innocence reclaimed, trust restored. Around them, the town's once skeptical eyes were now filled with a quiet reverence. The collective breath held in awe of this unity, a testament to the healing power of unexpected companionship. The luminous glow of the starlit sky bathed the scene in a gentle, almost sacred light, casting long, tender shadows that blurred the boundaries between human and dog, past and present, pain and peace. Danny's fingers brushed softly against Biscuit's fur, a gesture of forgiveness and gratitude for the gentle, steadfast presence that had helped him endure the shadows of grief. The dog leaned into the touch, feeling an unspoken bond that transcended words, a silent promise that love, once lost, could be found anew amid the ruins. The camera slowly pulled back, framing the pair against the calm, expansive night, the water reflecting a mirror of the starry sky universe, quietly witnessing this moment of profound transformation. The distant horizon shimmered with faint gold, a reminder that dawn was inevitable, hope resilient. As the scene faded into a deep, cinematic silence, the only thing left was the gentle glow of the stars, immortal sentinels of redemption, and a whispering promise that from heartbreak, from misunderstanding and fracture, true trust and healing could receive a new beginning born of compassion. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, the town was hushed in reverent silence. A gentle breeze carried the crisp scent of pine and ocean mist, wrapping the scene in a tranquil embrace. The starry heavens shimmered like distant watchful eyes, silent witnesses to a story of transformation and peace. Danny sat quietly on the park's worn bench, the small shoe weathered yet shining with a new hope placed softly beside his foot. Biscuit curled at his side, their figures silhouetted against the gentle glow of the moonlight, an emblem of unity tethered by unspoken understanding. The tiny shoe, once a symbol of childhood innocence lost to suspicion, now gleamed as a beacon of resilience and forgiveness. Each detail, the scuffed leather, the frayed laces, captured the essence of past pain braided with future promise. The silent tableau radiated a gentle strength, a testament that wounds, when healed with compassion, transcend into acceptance. Danny reached out slowly, touching Biscuit's scruffy head with reverence and gratitude. The dog's soulful eyes reflected the same tenderness, a mirror to the journey and evolution from fear to trust, from misunderstanding to mutual salvation. Their silent exchange was a sacred vow, a symbol of hope reborn amid shadows. Around them, the park was transformed. The chain-link fence, once a barrier of separation, now stood as a quiet monument to barriers, broken walls of prejudice yielding to shared stories and renewed hearts. The soft hum of nighttime creatures and gentle lapping of gentle waves echoed the harmony between their souls. Above, a lone star blinked slowly, whispering across the velvet dark, a universal testament that even in despair, peace can find a way to flourish. The scene lingered, suspended in a moment of quiet grace, a cinematic tableau of renewal etched in light and shadow. The camera gradually pulled away, leaving the figures of Danny and Biscuit beneath the eternal watch of the stars, peaceful, united, forever bound by the unbreakable thread of love and forgiveness. Have you ever witnessed an animal change a community? Share your thoughts below.